All right. So, so thank you for joining in. So today this is what we'll be discussing day two, AI, data science, and machine learning. By the way, Adam Lawal, I've been looking at the name. It looks familiar, right? But I don't know where it's from. So I might have even come across your profile somewhere before. I can't say. But the name looks familiar from Futa. Okay. So good evening, everyone. So we'll be discussing AI, data science, and ML today. So before we begin, this is me. I shared this same slide yesterday. My name is Samuel Ajala, and I am the current SPE AI ML lead. I'm also a machine learning engineer. I work in applied ML, so applied ML applications, so where you use machine learning in when you go hands-on with machine learning simply, rather than theory or research, right? So I'm a final year EC student, so that's electronics and computer engineering students. I have interest in AI, robotics, and intelligence systems. So we'll be talking about AI today, what AI is exactly. And in my free time, or when I try to wind down, I play chess and I play table tennis. But table tennis was in the past because there aren't boards around here. But I play chess almost every day, at least on my device. All right. So today's session won't be like yesterday. I got a feedback that I was rushing through slides. So I'll try to go slower today. So what do you think AI, data science, and ML mean? Like type it in the comments or you can just unmute your microphone and speak. What do you think it means? Or do you even know what we mean by AI, DS, and ML? Because they are just like abbreviations. And if you do know what they mean, can you like define any of them? You can just type it up, unmute and speak. Anyone? Okay. Yes. Yes. So AI means artificial intelligence. ML means machine learning. DS means data science. Right? And that's what we'll be talking about today. And the reason we'll be going into this is because sometimes people mix it up, right? So today we are going to make it very clear. All right. So let's move on. This is a meme I created. When someone says AI, ML, and data science are the same thing. Well, if you've worked in the field, if you worked in any of the fields, you will realize that these fields actually overlap. Like, what's the difference? Right. So I started out in data science. Actually, although the name sounded boring, so I didn't want to associate myself with it, right? Data science, like it's science, right? But I'm interested in engineering, right? So I started with data science, and when I moved to ML, I I thought to myself, these fields are like the same thing. If you look at job descriptions for data scientists and ML engineers, They are like very similar. Some of them are the same. You can just change the title on your resume to ML engineer, and that is just it, right? But the thing is, they are actually different, right? ML and data science are different. So let's progress. So let's look at this diagram. In this big red circle, we can see artificial intelligence. In the smaller circle inside, we can see machine learning. And in this green circle, we can see deep learning. Now you can see data science at the side, not actually inside the circle. So what that means is you can have ML, you can have AI separately, you can have data science separately. But okay, but some areas overlap each other, right? You borrow techniques from data science into machine learning, you borrow machine learning techniques to that, and vice versa. But as you can see, AI is very broad, right? It encompasses machine learning and deep learning. All right, so let's move on. So what is artificial intelligence? So I want this session to be more interactive than yesterday. So you know what AI is now, right? AI is artificial intelligence. Like, what are your thoughts on it? You can unmute or just type in the comments also, or give examples of what you think it means also. Anyone? Okay, Donald, you can unmute and just tell us.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, what I'll say about AI, artificial intelligence, it's simply making computers being able to act as humans do,
Being able to what?
be like giving computers the ability to act as humans.
Okay. Okay, that's a very good one. That's a very good one. Thank you, Donald. Anyone else wants to try? Okay, Ayomide, you can go on.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. I think, from my perspective, I think artificial intelligence is just like machine being able to think and solve problem, just like human can think and solve problem. Machine able to be think and solve problem. I think that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's actually right. That's actually right. That's good. Both of you are correct. Anyone else wants to try? Are there comments? Let me see. Okay. So Adam says AI is the ability of computers or to AI is the ability of computers to perform tasks usually requiring human intelligence, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, and decision making. It uses algorithms and large data sets to identify patterns, automate processes, and act autonomously. ML is a key aspect of AI. Yes, that is very correct also. Okay. Blaze says AI is an evolution in technology where computers learn to think like humans, hence making decisions also. That is also correct. Benjamin says AI is the simulation of human intelligence in machines, enabling them to mimic thinking, learning, and decision-making process. So all of you are actually very correct, right? If you look at all the definitions each of you have given so far, there's like there's something unique to all of them, and it is that it humans can do, right? So that is simply what AI is. So let's move on. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. So yeah, AI is a field that is concerned with building systems that can perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. So reasoning, decision making, maybe understanding, right? So some of the examples of things you see today and you call them AI will be chatbots, self-driving cars, voice assistants. So chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, right? They are chatbots. If someone's mic is unmuted, right? So self-driving cars like Tesla, we have Waymo, and some other companies, voice assistants, Siri, Alexa. The thing about voice assistants is we don't hear them as often as before for some reason, but I feel they'll still pop up again. Or yeah, they'll still pop up because of agentic AI. You can now attach tools to your AI brain and you just talk to your voice assistant and it just does all those things. So let's talk about some of the ways you can actually mimic human intelligence, right? Ways you can perform tasks like that. So we have computer vision. This is just what it sounds like. You are trying to give computers eyes, and that is not enough. You are trying to teach it to understand what it sees, right? It can see a moving object and tell that it is moving and tell that maybe it is a cup or a ball, right? So that is computer vision. That's wide range of applications. You use it in security cameras. You can use it to identify faces. Like if you've watched all these sci-fi movies, I see them tracking someone's face and then they zoom in and then you see like maybe database come up and it scans the database. Yeah, that's computer vision in action. So if some of you have facial recognition on your phone, that is also computer vision. Right? What that does is it's just it calculates the it calculates distances between parts of your face and it just stores them somewhere. All right. So another one is natural language processing. So here we are talking about speech now, about language. So text, audio, language in general. How do you teach computers to understand language? Right. So that this is the field that is concerned with it. Short form is NLP. You might have seen it in places before. So you can call your chatbots. You can say your chatbots use natural language processing. All right. Even your voice assistants too, because they need to understand language. All right, we have robotics. So when I checked the application form for this bootcamp, a lot of people were interested in robotics, right? That's surprising, though. That is surprising. Right, so robotics is an emerging field in artificial intelligence. So if you look at all this so far, they are trying to perform tasks that require human intelligence. Now, if you look at computer vision, you look at NLP, right? These are not physical, they are like software based. But robotics is where the hardware comes in. So if you tell an AI agent or system to maybe take a cup from one place to another, this is what enables that happen, robotics. So robotics is like we are giving a body, we are giving the brain body to be able to do things like humans. Now there are breakthroughs in this field recently, especially in the field of embodied AI or physical AI, if you've heard of it. You might have seen robots maybe doing laundry or robots cooking or robots folding towel. So that those are applications of embodied AI. So you basically have a brain, which is the software, the intelligence, and you just attach physical parts to it. So we also have machine learning, which we'll be covering today, although we won't be going so deep into machine learning. So let's move on. Now, this is a funny question, or it might be to some people. So is a calculator AI? Yes or no? And if you think it's not an AI, can you give your reasons? Like type it in the comments or unmute your mic and just share your thoughts. What do you guys think? I think it's AI, but what do you guys think? Hmm, it's not. Others are not saying anything. Lua Kayode says it's not. Are you sure? Are you sure it is not AI? Why is it not AI? You say it is not. Benjamin says it's not. A normal calculator is just a programmed machine that follows fixed rules to compute answers. Hmm. So you guys think calculator is not AI? Okay. You know, AI started in like the 1950s, right? Okay. Someone says the calculator is not an AI. It can't make a decision on its own. Hmm. Making a computer perform arithmetic processes. Okay. Someone says, I feel like calculator is a product of machine learning. Hmm. So which do you think came first? Do you think machine learning came before calculators or calculators came before machine learning? It is not AI because it doesn't learn from experience and doesn't follow any predefined rule. Okay, okay. So those are all interesting answers, interesting thoughts. Okay. So a calculator is not actually AI, right? And yes, calculators came way before AI, right? We had the abacus, we had the analytical, I think we had I can't remember the other ones yet, but we had this addition one we had the Pascal line too. Yeah, so I think that was how computers even like started. Like calculators came way before computers, right? So yeah, a calculator is not AI because a calculator does not learn, does not adapt, and does not make decisions. It just follows predefined rules. 2 plus 2 is 4. It will give you that as 4, right? And it doesn't, okay, let me not say that yet. But yeah, so that's the difference between automation and intelligence. Automation just follows predefined rules. Intelligence is like the ability to adapt, right? So yeah, calculator is not AI. All right, let's move on. Now, what is machine learning? We've already talked about artificial intelligence. So what is machine learning? So machine learning is a subset of AI where systems, machine, agents are designed to learn patterns from data and improve their performance without being explicitly programmed. So this is why a calculator is not a product of machine learning. Calculators do not learn patterns from humans like us. They don't they don't gather data, right? They don't improve their performance. And this one says without being explicitly programmed. Calculators are explicitly programmed, right? So that's the difference. Now we have applications of machine learning, right? We have spam detection, recommendation systems, fraud detection, right? So the way machine learning works is that you take in a bunch of data and then feed it through you just feed it through a model, something we call a model. And what it just outputs, when you feed it to the model tries to understand the patterns in the data, right? Because you say it learns patterns from data. And when it has gotten the pattern, whenever you now ask it a question or you throw something to it, it gives you back a response. So you can think of it like a mapping. It's You can think of it as mapping, let's say, variables x to y, right? It's a function. Models are like functions. They map x to y. So if I have x1 and my output is y1, what happens if I have x2? So you need to find out y2, right? So that y2 is what you would call the prediction. The model would have learned from various data over time. So say for spam detection now, which you use in your emails. So whenever if you use Gmail and you get a spam, it goes directly into the spam folder. Right. Now it is not always accurate, but it looks for certain keywords that could indicate it is a spam email. Things like maybe hurry up, offer expires soon, and all that, or anything it detects as like advertising. So the way that works is that instead of you telling your model that instead of you telling your model that this is spam or this is not spam, you can simply just you can simply because that would be very tedious, right? Tell, telling your model, telling your system to mark this as spam because there are so many kinds, so many ways you can write spam emails. So what you do, you look for data that has already been labeled be spam and not spam, and then you just let your model find the relationships between them. And when it has learned the patterns in those data, it is able to now tell you, although it's not always accurate because it depends on the data it's trained on. Sometimes if you send a message, you send an email to someone and you don't add like a subject, it could just go to spam on the other person's end. All right. So we have spam detection, recommendations. So whenever you are on a site and the site recommends something to you, right? That is machine learning. And then we have fraud detection. We have fraud detection. We have loaning. So whenever maybe fintechs or microfinance banks, whenever you request a loan from them, they use your data to predict the likelihood of you paying back your loan. So if yeah, if you look at different information about you, if gender is relevant, you look at gender, you look at your current salary, how much you are getting paid, maybe other kinds of investments you have, and all that. And then they use that to determine whether you are going to be able to pay back. And they use this for fraud detection too. All right, we've talked about what machine learning is. It is simply allowing systems to learn patterns from data. All right. So that is what machine learning is. So how do you think Netflix recommends movies? Does anyone have an idea? Does anyone want to try this question? Just share your thoughts. There are no right or wrong answers. Let's just hear what you think. Right, we're out here to learn. You can type it and you can request the mic also. Okay, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Good evening. I think it learns from the type of the genre of movie you watch. Then based on those gen, it brings recommendation.
Okay, that's a good one. That's actually correct. That is good. Yes, it learns from the genre of movies you watch. Samuel says they recommend movies based on recent searches. Yes, that too. That too. Right, so both of you are correct, right? So the way it learns is that it starts with your behavior, right? All your behavior is being tracked, right? All the clicks, whether you click on a movie and you go back, or you click a movie and exit, all your interactions with Netflix platform is being tracked. It's being sent somewhere, right? It's being sent somewhere. So it all starts with your behavior. Netflix tracks what you do, what you watch, what you click, whatever you skip, how long you watch a movie. It tracks it. So let's say you watch a lot of action movies, for example, now, and then for romantic ones, you just like you don't finish them. Maybe you stop halfway. The data that Netflix has gotten from this will be sent to a model or a system. So when the system sees that data, it starts to understand your preferences. That okay, you like action movies more, and romantic ones not so much. So that is one way it does that, right? Netflix also look at people that behave like you. Right? Say for example, um, the people that watch the same show that you've watched, right? What did those people also enjoy, right? Say if you've watched maybe Breaking Bad, for example, now let's say someone has watched Breaking Bad, and then next he watch maybe Better Call Saul, right? If you've watched that before, sure. Let's say you just finished watching Breaking Bad, there's a chance that it's going to recommend that same movie for you, the Better Call Saul. That's it. So it looks at what other people who behave like you, what they enjoyed, and it also tries to recommend that to you. So that is another way. It also looks at the content itself. So if you like action movies, it's very simple. Recommend more action movies. Right? That is it. So if you look at this now, if you look at all these examples I've given, you see that Netflix is not just trying to understand what you've done before, right? So it's trying to predict your future behavior also. So that recommendation, it's telling you that it believes this is what you likely want in the future. So it just gives it to you, right? So that is how Netflix, that is how recommender system works. The default recommender system. Whenever you visit a platform that recommends anything for you, they recommend that system under the hood, right? So let's move on. Now, data science. I can't remember the company that called this the sexiest job of the 21st century, I believe, when it started to go mainstream. Like a lot of people were going into data science. I mean, it's all about data. There are so many things you can do with data, right? Data is the new oil, right? Without data, AI cannot work, right? So, what is data science? What do you guys think about this? What do you think data science is? Right? You understand? Okay, science, data. So they're studying data, right? But let's just hear your thoughts. What do you think about it? Anyone wants to try? Okay. Data science is the process. So Benjamin says data science is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data to solve problems and make better decisions. Hmm, that's a good one. You've basically defined it, right? You've defined what data science is. Yeah, so you are correct. Data science is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data. Okay, so it is the process of collecting, analyzing, and extracting insights from data to support decision making. So you've gathered data, right? So what do you use data for? Like data is useless if you cannot convert it to useful information, right? That's why they say data is raw facts, right? What do you do with the data you have? If you are unable to make a decision based on the data you have, then the data is not useful. Now you cannot rule it out that data will be useful forever because you never know when the insights you get from that data you think is not useful. You never know when it will come in handy, right? So, and the thing about Africa in general is that they aren't really open source data sets. So data scientists, other people, other fields that rely on data find it hard to get quality data, right? You can imagine we are struggling with our own data, and then you see a company like Google is able to get so many. Like there was one model they released recently that they trained on African languages, right? We don't even have that. We don't have that amount, and they because they see the value, right? They see the value. You could have been gathering it for a very long time, in fact. So yeah, data. This is data science in short. We're trying to extract insights from data and use it to make decisions. So data science is broader than ML, right? You know, ML relies on data, right? So it uses some data science techniques, but data science is beyond that. And not all, yes, it's beyond that. So not all data science use ML. You can do ML, you can do data science without ML, right? It exists. If you do data science on Excel, there are people that do data science on Excel, right? They don't touch ML. So an example is analyzing sales data to find trends. So let's say you own a business now and and you're keeping data. You are now trying to figure out what how much you likely make or how much you sell at some point in the future, right? Data science can help you achieve this. Customer segmentation. Say you have a business now, right? You can see how useful gathering data is, right? Even for this boot camp now, we have people that are gathering data under the hood. They are looking at the participants that joined, um, the number of questions asked, who asked the question, and all that. So these things are really important because they help us make decisions later on when we need them. So customer segmentation, for example, is just saying um, you are a business owner, right? And people come to buy something from you. Now you want to understand the types of customers you have. So when you do segmentation, you can now find out that let's say customers that come from a certain region like to spend more. I think someone's mic. Okay. All right, let's move on. So let's say you say customers from a certain region likes to spend more, or customers that their name starts with A, they like spending maybe within 20 to 50K, right? These are things you can find. Like you just gather the data and just throw it to the model, and the model just figures out the patterns, right? So here now, here you are trying to, all this is trying to inform human decision making, right? It is for the human to understand, right? For machine learning, it is for the machine to understand. right? So that's a difference now between data science and machine learning. You're mainly trying to support decision making with the data you have. That's what data science is concerned about. Now, tracking customer churn. So let's say you built an app, for example, now. But this is what they call churn rate. It's used in banks. Almost all banks use this, right? Say you have customers that have opened accounts with you as a bank already, and then some people stop buying. You're always gathering data, right? Some people stop buying, some people stop interacting with your product, right? You look at the qualities, the features of those customers. So when a new customer comes in, you try to predict the likelihood of the person leaving or the likelihood of the person to stop buying your product, to stop interacting with you. So data science helps with this. It helps to track customer churn, who stopped buying, who stopped interacting with your product. So let's look at the table now. Okay, before that, comparing energy consumption across facilities. So in the energy industry, you see that everyone gathers data, whether you think they do or they don't. They are always gathering data. Your phone is gathering data about you. If you go deep into your settings, you are going to find that Android gathers data to improve its services and all that. Right, to improve its services, it helps, and it can also help for personalizing experiences for you. So if you're on apps and you click on certain things more, you just see that it becomes easier for you to interact with it, right? Building products that adapt to specific users, right? So data science can also be used for that. So comparing energy consumption across facilities. So let's say you have several energy generation companies now, and you are just for data science now, you are just trying to extract insights. Right? That is really what is important. You just want to see it like, okay, say factory A now generates 20,000 megawatts of electricity, and let's say factory B generates 10,000 megawatts, right? That is something you may not be able to make a decision based on that yet, but that is really useful information. So let's look at this table. We've talked about artificial intelligence, we've talked about data science, we've talked about machine learning. So artificial intelligence is intelligence, right? The ability to adapt, to change. Right. If you are chatting with your chatbot now, and you say things like you are suicidal, for example, the way it responds starts to be different, right? Because it sort of understands that okay, you're suicidal. There's a way I have to talk. If it was talking to you in an encouraging tone before, it's not going to do that anymore. Like if it's like motivating you to do things, it's just going to tell you to just try to calm down, relax, and take things easy, right? So that is artificial intelligence. For data science, data science is a tool that helps humans in particular. So it helps them understand the data they have. Simple, right? So sales analysis now, like what we discussed before, we want to know how much we are going to sell in the future, right? Data science helps with that. For machine learning now, you're helping the computers learn patterns. Now, as the computers learn patterns, it's not like it's just useful for the computers alone. It's useful for you also, right? Because spam filter now, does the computer really care? Does the computer really care if it gets spammed, right? It doesn't really care. It is the humans that are usually affected, right? So the computers learn patterns, and then those things help humans, right? So spam filters, recommender systems like Netflix, Say if you go to Jumia now and it's recommending products for you, like Jumia. If you open Instagram, if you open Instagram, for example, now you could see products that you've searched for on Jumia, right? So those are your data being shared across apps, as you can see. So your data is always being collected, right? Even on this call, who knows if Google is secretly recording? Right? Nobody knows, right? All right, let's move on. Now let's talk about common misconceptions. Now, this may be things you've already started thinking of, or things you've not, but will likely still come across them. To get started in ML, AI, data science, you must know advanced maths. No, you don't have to. I don't know if you've come across stories of people from, say, maybe literature, and then they just found interest in AI, right? And they just go into AI and they just make a breakthrough, right? There are stories like that. If you check online, we are going to see them, right? These are intelligent individuals. They just they just had interest in it and they went for it and they made a breakthrough, right? So this is a common misconception. You don't need to know advanced maths, especially the mass heavy area is in the research, right? It's in the research, it's slightly heavier, right? But when it comes to applied ML, you don't need to know mass, right? You can do fine without it. Another misconception is AI can think. Now this will shock some of you to realize that AI don't think, right? They are not capable of thinking. How do I explain this? So what AI does is pattern matching, pattern recognition. Since it learns from data, it cannot just hook up something entirely new from what is being trained on. Right? Say for example now, we all know the laws of physics, right? What goes up must come down. Energy cannot be created or destroyed and all that. If AI cannot just come up with a new law. Like the law must have already been existing. It must have been what it has already been trained on before, right? So AI is not capable of thinking in the same sense that human does, to form information. So AI cannot think. It's some people believe they are not capable of being conscious, even though you see news about it all the time. Some people believe they are just hype and all that. Machine learning models are 100% objective. What this is saying is that it's like when you give data to your machine learning models, whatever it output is correct. Now, that is not true, right? Because these models, by default, they work on probabilities. So, say for the spam filter that we discussed earlier now, your model tells you it is spam, right? It is not telling you with it is not telling you with certainty that it is spam. It is telling you with probability. It will tell you it is 70% sure. It is 70% sure that it is spam. Now that is a probability, right? It could tell you 100% sure. Yeah, it's still a probability, right? So your models are not 100% objective because they depend on the data you train them on. There was one time Gemini was being dragged. You see, if you search for, you see, if you tell it to generate an image of um, maybe a poor person, it starts to generate black people, right? There was one time that was trending, and it was because of the data they trained it on. Maybe that was the data. It doesn't make sense, but humans can actually introduce bias into the system. Like these are human biases, right? There's no way you say they aren't poor white people, right? Or they aren't poor Asians, right? They are, but that is what it is trained on. So we have to be careful here. Whatever a model outputs usually depends on the data it is fed. So let's move on. Coding is the hardest part. Now, this is another misconception. Coding is just an abstraction, right? It's like an abstraction layer. It's an abstraction of mass, right? The hard part, the hard problem when it comes to AI, data science, or ML is framing the problem the right way. That is the hard part, right? So you might have heard the quote, first solve the problem, then write the code. That's what it's explaining. It's telling you, you could see coding as very hard normally, right? You could see it as hard normally, but you have to first define the problem. If you're unable to define the problem, if you're unable to think of the solution beforehand, you are just going to spend a lot of time writing code. And the code you write won't be very efficient because they have to be a thought process behind whatever you are writing. A question for you all again. Which one do you think is the easiest to start with? AI, data science, machine learning. Right? Which do you think is the easiest? You can type in the comments. Okay, I can see Anu, I think your hand is up. You can speak, you can unmute your mic and speak. You guys should type, you guys should type. Okay, Kayode says data science. Teslima says machine learning. Anu says data science. Blaze says machine learning. Okay, so it's a tie. No one is saying AI. No one is saying AI. AI is easy. Well, AI actually builds on them, right? It builds on them. You can't really separate AI. Okay. Donald says data science, machine learning. Okay. Adam says data science. Understand the data patterns first, then you do well with AI and ML. Well, in my own perspective, I could say learning data science first helped me. But people come from different backgrounds, right? Even in the data field, right? So people believe data science is the hardest, right? Because we have data engineering, we have data analysis, right? People believe data science. If you tell someone, if you tell someone you do data science, they'll be like, wow, right? So okay, I can see machine learning, data science, a lot of debates between those two. Okay, so keep this in mind. If you are starting, you don't need to choose today, right? You don't need to choose. This bootcamp is meant to just is meant to expose you. So experiment with stuff, right? Try out different ones. You don't need to pick one and just focus on it. You can just like you can you can test the waters, right? Just see what you like. Play around with stuff. Uh, that's how I stumbled on. That's how I stumbled on coding in the first place. Right? It is not like I intentionally went out there and searched for how to learn to code. I was doing something different, something academic related in junior school, and I just came across a coding app, and I was very curious. And I opened the app and I saw coding. What is coding? And that was how it all started. Right? Curiosity. So you don't need to choose the path you want to take today. This bootcamp is just meant to show you what is possible, right? What is out there. All right. right. So hope I'm not missing comments anymore. Okay, no comments. So let's look at real world scenarios of what we've discussed so far. Scenario one, data science. Say you own a supermarket, right? The supermarket has been operating for years, and it has gathered data. Very important. If you don't gather data, you can't make factual decisions. Like you can't make informed decisions. So whenever you say something, it should be backed with facts, right? That's really important. So you can see that even in the supermarket here, they are gathering data. So this supermarket has years of data, and they want to understand the following. They want to understand which of the products they sell sells the most, right? Which product makes the most, right? They want to understand what time people buy certain items, right? You see that these are very important questions that could help the supermarket owners make better decisions. They want to understand which location performs better. Say you have stores in several locations. Think of a supermarket like, say, Boku, for example. Now, Boku has stores in so many locations in Lagos. Like, just understand which location more, right? What time do they sell, and how what's the quantity they sell during that period? Maybe they sell more on Sundays and all that. So, what a data scientist is going to do here is he's going to first gather the data, right? The supermarket has years of sales data, so it's going to gather it and clean the data, right? So when you gather data, initially it's usually not structured. So you need to keep it in a structured format so that you can understand it, whoever is reading can understand it. Right? So that's really important. So cleaning the data first, then the data scientist will look out for patterns and he will make analysis based on that. Right. So remember we say you are trying to extract insights from data to help make decisions. So remember, data science is a tool that helps humans, right? So you look out for patterns and you make analysis. So there are data science techniques out there that you can use. There are statistical techniques that you can use to find patterns in data, right? So the data scientist does this. Then the data scientist might create dashboards to communicate to the business owner. It might, right? It might, right? Not all data scientists do this. We have people that specialize on mainly these two, right? Mainly look out for patterns and create dashboards. These people are usually close to the higher ups in companies because they can help the owners of the companies make better decisions. They are usually called business intelligence analysts, right? And the name even makes sense. So we call them BI analysts, right? So that is what they do. They analyze data and they use it to create dashboards and all that so that CEOs, CTOs, COOs can understand it and use that to make decisions, right? So when the data scientist has done all this, right? So what is the outcome? What's the output? Well, this just helps the business make better decisions. What does that mean? Say, for example, Boku has, let's say Boku has, we know Boku has stores all over Lagos, right? So let's say they have just one store in, let's say, Yaba, right? And from their analysis, from the patterns they've gathered, they see that the Yaba stocks gets sold very quickly, right? So what that's telling them is that there's a lot more demand than supply in that area. So what does Boku do? Boku creates another store because I've actually seen several stores. I've seen stores along the same road. I've seen Boku stores along the same road. I've seen stores in the same locations before. So that's what Boku does. So Boku adds another store somewhere around there. And what does this help them do? Well, it helps them realize profit in a shorter time. They've seen that there's a lot more demand than supply, and they need to like balance it. So they add more stores, they make more profits that way. So the business makes better decisions. All this because they were able to understand the data that they gathered. So let's see another scenario. Scenario two, machine learning. Now, if you look at scenario one, we didn't talk about machine learning at all. So data science can exist on its own without machine learning. We just have some parts that overlap where you can borrow machine learning techniques to data science, can borrow data science techniques to machine learning, right? So let's look at scenario two. Now, the same supermarket wants to predict future sales, right? So instead of manually guessing, they want to use past data and then they use that data to train a model. And when the model is done undergoing training, they want to use that to predict demand for next week. Now, this problem makes a lot of sense, right? We have data we've gathered in the past. We want to predict how much we sell, say on a Friday, right? So this is where machine learning can come in. Prediction, right? Classification too. So this is a very good problem, and this is commonly used than we might even think. So say for example, the store has predicted that there's going to be like huge demand. Maybe it knows that every Friday on maybe the 12th day of every month, there's usually like very high demand, like a lot of people buy stuff on that day. So what the supermarket will do is to stock up more for that day because it has already predicted that is going to happen in the future. So it also helps owners make better decisions. So this is just an example of where machine learning can be applied. And what's the outcome? The system learns patterns, make predictions, and helps the owners plan ahead. Now, you can see that here too, it relies on data. This is just reinforcing that gathering data is very important also. So let's look at scenario three now, artificial intelligence. Now, I've said artificial intelligence is encompassing. So it's not like it can stand on its own. So if you are doing ML, that's artificial intelligence, right? So let's see a scenario. So imagine a fully automated store system now. Say say a store like the one Amazon did in Europe where you can just walk in, take products and just go out, right? You'll be wondering how that even works because that's like a crazy technology. So what it does is that it uses computer vision to scan your face. Right? You have to have been registered on the platform beforehand, right? So it scans your face to know who this person is, and you would have loaded money somewhere, and whatever you buy, it just removes that. That is how it works. But let's say in this scenario now, you want to create a fully automated store, and you want the system to be able to predict the demand, right? Just like the previous example, we want the system to automatically order stock. So if the system detects that, oh, this is about to finish, it should be able to automatically order it. We want the system to adjust pricing. Say there's a lot of demand now, like there's like a lot of demand. So and there's like very little supply. So what business owners could do is to increase the price, right? Say the system detects that a certain product is leaving its hunger very quickly. It should be able to tell that there is like a lot of demand for that. So it might dynamically increase its price. Say you want the system to be able to detect theft using cameras, right? So you can see how useful computer vision is here also. Say you just take the product in that Amazon store. Well, you can't even do that there because it is tracking your face from when you enter. But imagine a store that is not so fully automated yet. Say a regular store, for example, and you just take a product and run outside. The camera has already detected your face. If it has a database, it's just scan through the database and pick out your name and identify you, right? So that's the power of artificial intelligence. Imagine the system can also interact with customers via a chatbot. Now you can see all this is made possible due to data in the first place, predicting demand. Now, this one could be a rule-based one, automatically order stock. So you could just have a sensor that just detects maybe the weight in a particular section of the store. If it has reduced, it should tell that okay, the stocks are reducing, it should get more. Adjust pricing dynamically, right? This is data also. So every time a user picks up something from the shelf, it updates, detects theft using cameras, computer vision, interacts with customers via chatbots, NLP. So all this come together to form artificial intelligence. So the system intelligence here, the system is able to adapt, right? It is able to learn from past data, right? And it is able to make predictions for the future. So one thing you need to understand is that data science helps you understand. Machine learning helps systems learn from data, and artificial intelligence uses all this to build intelligent systems. Okay, so I think we've covered, we decided not to go very deep. I hope that's not too deep. So now we are moving to Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to type or request the mic and just ask your question. Okay, Anu, I think your hand is raised. You can ask your question. Ask your question. So Benjamin says, what is the learning process like? What is the learning process like? Duration for data science, AI, and ML? Which has the longest duration? Well, no one will be able to give you a specific answer for this because it really varies. Also, I wasn't even tracking it because this field overlap. You won't know when you've already maybe left data science and you are into ML or you are doing computer vision, right? So people don't really track this like that. So there's no specific duration, but don't use the duration to judge, right? Right. It's better for you to go deep into something than to be very shallow at it. So find something that interests you and just explore, right? Just explore. Now, as for resources for all this, it will be shared very soon. If you wish to get started in data science or ML or AI in general, we are there's still a hype for agentic systems, AI agents, right? What that means is you have, let's say you think of it like all these your models now that you've trained on, you attach tools to them. Say maybe you give it your login info, for example. Now maybe you give it your Jumia login info and you train a model to predict when you are going to be out of something. So an agentic system is just going to use those details, log into Jumia and order on your behalf, right? So we're attaching tools, right? You are giving it extra capabilities. So that's just what agentic systems are. So Benjamin, for you asking which has the longest duration, I cannot say. If you are learning machine learning, you are learning AI. If you are doing computer vision, you are learning AI. Right? So there is no specific duration for that. Okay, Coyote is asking for someone who wants to go into data science, would he or she need to learn AI? Because I've only heard of machine learning in data science. Let me see if I can pull up that diagram again. So data science can exist on its own from this diagram, but then it's not complete, right? You would need to borrow techniques from ML. So to answer your question, your question is about need. Would you need to? It depends on what you want to do. I can't say this is what you need, and it also depends on what the situation calls for, right? But you can do data science without doing anything ML related, right? So you don't. So this the answer you understand is no. You don't need to learn AI. Right? Data science is different from AI, so you don't need to learn AI to start in data science. Along the way, you may wish to incorporate it. You may have to incorporate it depending on where you work also. So I hope that answers your question, Coyote. So does anyone have any other question? Are there some questions? Okay. So I assume we've been able to answer the questions you have. Well, if you still have questions, you can drop it on the community. So if you wish to post, please use this hashtag on Twitter or LinkedIn. Makes it easier for us to track the posts, right? Because on the call yesterday, we broke down the metrics for you getting a certificate, right? So let me see if I can pull it up. So you can see attendance. For those that could not join yesterday and could not read the document, attendance takes up 30%, engagement 20%, projects and outputs 50%. And you need at least one project output. So this output could be articles or could be ML projects you've built, right? So you can look through the document. It was sent to the group yesterday. Engagement is you asking questions, just the way people are asking questions on this chat now. It's being recorded, it's being tracked. So you helping others, that's a point also. So for attendance, each day you attend is 1 point. That is also being tracked. So the minimum requirement to get a certificate is 60%, right? But you need at least one of these. and attend minimum of 15 sessions. So don't forget, if you wish to make a post anytime, you can tag SPE Lasso, and you can also use this hashtag to make it easier to track. So thank you very much for joining today. We have something for you tomorrow also. So also, the feedback form will be shared. If you wish to share your thoughts, your feedback on what we can improve, it will be appreciated so we can improve very quickly. So share your feedback, share your thoughts on the community. Everything is being tracked also. So thank you very much for joining in. So we'll be having another session tomorrow. Yeah, you are welcome, Teslima. So just stay tuned for that. I won't announce the session yet, but you'll get to find out soon tomorrow. So thank you all for joining in. Let me stop recording now.